Well, we've just about come to the end of the rebuild and repair series on this auction special 2013 Honda Civic Hybrid. And so I wanted to give some thoughts in my cost breakdown, like I've been saying I was going to do. See what I ended up spending on this mess. And I also want to let you know whether I think this is a reasonable car for your average schmuck to purchase under any circumstances, not necessarily a derelict one that's broken at an auction. So we'll start with that. I really like the car. It drives nice. It's doing exactly what I hoped. I'm getting about 48 miles to the gallon for a full tank. You know, with all the driving I do back and forth to work, I'm probably getting right around 50, which was about my target. I was hoping for 55, but we'll see now that I've changed the oil. But 50 seems to be easily doable the way I drive. I'm driving it the same way I drove the truck when I was getting 17-ish on the way to and from work and 15 and a half overall. So that's exactly what I wanted. Now, if you've been following along with these videos, which I'll link up there somewhere to the playlist, this is a lot more expensive if it fails than I expected it to be. It's certainly much more expensive to repair than my old Ford. Now, is it worth 15 miles per gallon versus 50? That's up to you. But in my personal opinion, under no circumstances, unless I was confident I could do every bit of the work myself, would I ever own one of these without a warranty. No one who cannot change all of these electronic parts, all of this stuff, and do the diagnosis on their own should own one of these without a warranty. Ever. I don't care what condition it's in. I don't care how many miles it has on it. You should never own a hybrid, especially one of these with this IMA system, without a warranty. Because if that big, expensive, ridiculous box I had to change dies, it is undrivable, which is how I ended up with it, because that's what happened for the second time. So they do fail. Now, that said, none of the things that I did as far as repairing the car were terribly difficult. The diagnosis I did in the first 6, 8, 7, 8 videos was all kind of a wild goose chase, to be honest. The IMA inverter was bad, and that was the exact thing that Honda recalled, or not recalled, but extended the warranty on these. If you've got one that's less than 15 years old and has less than 150,000 miles on it, that IMA module is under warranty. Take it to the shop if you have these codes when it fails, and they will replace it. It is warranty. If they don't, there's a technical service bulletin. I'll try to link to it in the description. Read it, copy it, bring it, sue them. It's under warranty if it's less than 15 years old and less than 150,000 miles. And I believe that also goes for the Acura ILX, which obviously has a very similar, if not identical, system in it. Obviously, 226,000 miles when I bought this thing, that doesn't apply to me. And it had already been changed because it had an aftermarket one in it, as we saw in the earlier videos when I pulled the back seat out and investigated. Now, that was one of the things that threw me off, because I was expecting that individual failures might cause individual codes. So I started troubleshooting all of the individual codes, and I was going around in circles finding that everything was fine. It truly ended up that when I gave up, bit the bullet, and bought the module, it fixed every single one of the DTCs except for the airbag. The airbag was separate. That had to be changed on its own. Again, that's different. But every code other than the airbag was fixed just by changing that module, which is the reason the Honda Technical Service Bulletin exists and the fact that they extended that warranty, because that is prone to failure. So, looking at the previous owner, my guess, and again, this is a guess, based on everything I found about this car, the history, the Carfax, all the previous documentation, the dates on the tires, the oil change sticker, the two different dates on the title from the two different pay here, buy here, pay here places that it went to before it ended up at the auction. The car, at some point after it had 150,000 miles on it, so at some point after 2017, based on the Carfax, which, according to the title, is at some point after the prior owner purchased it, the original IMA module failed. It was after 150,000, so that had to be done, and that was repaired. And that's how it ended up with a Green Tech unit in it that you saw in the earlier videos. That probably, because I'm betting she didn't do it herself, that was probably $3,000 to have that done. And as we found when I called them up, they don't have a warranty, beyond whatever. They have no way of researching what VIN the thing went into. They don't do repairs. So if it fails again, guess what? Bend over, here comes another $3,000. Which I believe is honestly what happened. This car, she was putting a lot of miles on it. She seemed to be an Uber driver around Atlanta for 2 or 3 years straight at the Atlanta airport. Found all that documentation in the car. Obviously never really thought about changing the air cleaners. Or the transmission oil. But she did seem to do the engine oil. It had a reasonably recent engine oil change sticker. It had 4 of the same tires on it there. I think the fronts are a year or so older than the rears, so she's not perfect, didn't change them all 4 at the same time, but good enough. They're all 4 the same, and they're good enough, and they're even front and even back, so it doesn't drive badly at all. But let's look at what happened after that failed again. Now, you've got a car. At that time, gas prices hadn't gone utterly batshit, so it was probably worth, you could buy another one for $5 or $6 grand. And with this many miles on it. So she probably just said, screw it, I'm not putting another $3,000 into this car. Traded it in for $1,000 maybe, who knows. I doubt they'd give her more than that, found something that's undrivable. And bought some other car, who knows what, that had some sort of a monthly payment, and went on about her business. Then the first buy here, pay here lot got it. They couldn't do anything with it. Got it to another buy here, pay here lot, which couldn't do anything with it, and decided, well, all right, we paid $1,500 for it. The first lot probably paid $1,000 for it, sold it for $1,500. The second lot paid $1,500 for it, said screw it, and I bought it for. And here now we'll get into the prices. And then we're at the auction. My auction bid, my final bid was $2,800. And so that second car dealer didn't have to fix it, and they made $1,300 estimate, guessing how this transaction might have worked. They probably made some money. At a minimum, they broke even. No, they did not lose on this car by flipping it at the auction, to me. Here's where it gets silly. The auction fees for this IAA auction through the broker that I had to go through was $1,010. So my total price out the door for the car was $3,810. Still not terrible. Because when I bought it in March, gas prices have gone nuts. And as I've gone through this thing and worked on it and fixed it and now made it, error-free other than the dent, you can see these things on Carvana with, granted, a lot less miles for $15,000, $16,000. And I'll get into why that's interesting in a little bit compared to my my 250,000 miler here. All right, so we got 2,800 plus 1,010. The diesel I had to spend to go pick it up, round trip to east of Atlanta and back, was about 375 bucks in diesel. During my diagnosis, I parts cannoned a $525 paperweight at it that didn't fix it. So I'm including that in here. Now, I'm going to sell that eventually on eBay, and I'll recoup something. 50 bucks, who knows? Maybe what I paid for it, I don't know. You know, it doesn't have any less warranty from me than it would have from Honda, because once you open an electrical part, you can't return it. So it doesn't matter. It's brand new. Now, after I finally gave up on that, bit the big bullet, bought the big IMA controller from Bumblebee Batteries, $2,300. But 5 years of warranty, and that's key. 5 years of warranty on this thing for 2,300 bucks. So you look at those ones on Carvana with 60,000 miles that are the same age as this. You can go in there right now, find a 2014 with 60,000, 70,000 miles on it, pay $15,000, $16,000 for it, and tomorrow that IMA controller dies. Now granted, if it's under 150,000, it's still under warranty, so you can get that fixed. But eventually, you're out of warranty. You know, if it dies before 150, you're lucky. If it does what this one does and gets to about 170, now you're out $3,000 and you just paid $16,000 for that car, and you got to throw another $3,000 at it. That's how I'm thinking about it. I got 5 years worry-free on these electronics. That thing craps out in the next 5 years, I'm going to mail it back to Bumblebee. They're going to mail me a new one, and I'm going to keep driving, because that's how I think about this. Now the airbag, that was a surprise. I didn't expect that to be what it was. Saw the troubleshooting, had to buy some tools, tested it, turned out airbag was faulty. That was $850. And I was surprised at how hard it was to find Honda dealers that'll sell you an airbag, but I was able to find one, 850 bucks, put it in. It's been perfect since. Driven probably 300-400 miles, no issues whatsoever. So that absolutely was the fault. Spark plugs, there's 8 of them. They're 12 bucks a piece. So that was like 130 bucks for the spark plugs with shipping. Air filter, the disgusting thing we pulled out, about $25. The mirror, which I ended up only using the cover from, but in order to get it, that was 120 bucks off eBay. Again, hybrid special. And these turn signals are extremely rare. White ones with those turn signals are apparently, this is the only one that was ever made. Cabin air filter, 12 bucks. Nothing major there. Headlights for the lows and the high beams. It was about $150. The headlight polishing kit, which I forgot to put on my list, that was 12 bucks. Really only used $6 of it because I polished the headlights on a Honda Pilot the next weekend. So $6 for that. The windshield, that's a ball buster. $900. That hasn't been done yet. It's scheduled for next Wednesday at Safelight. $900. If you buy that windshield from Honda, it's $1,400 bucks without installation. And that is strictly because of that silly camera for the lane keep assist and the forward collision warning. So my recommendation is, if you don't care about that stuff, find one without it, because the windshield's $250 bucks if you don't have that garbage. Live and learn. Pay to play. Windshield wipers, because they were junk, 45 bucks. My transmission fluid, 45 bucks. The lug nut and stud from yesterday's video, 5 bucks. So my gross total now, including the $6 for the headlights, is $9,478 that I have out of pocket into this car right now. I'm not including the registration or insurance. It's basically a wash with the Ford. So that doesn't matter. Now, that's kind of ridiculous. But, like I said, I defy anyone to go find one of these effectively with any mileage that's in as good a running condition and has a 5-year warranty on that $2,300 electrical box in the back. I don't think you're going to do it. Even those $16,000 ones, 100,000 mile ones for $12,000, you are not going to get a warranty on that. It is what it is. Once you get over 150, you're on your own. It's $3,000. It's $2,300 if you can do it yourself. It's $3,000 or $4,000 if you have the. It's probably $5,000 if you have the dealer do it. It's $3,000 or $4,000 if you have an independent do it. So that's what I like about this. I got a little bit of cushion on that electrical part. So what else happened here? Well, I did sell the Ford. I sold the Ford back to the family that I purchased it from which I purchased it in 2010. It's going to the nephew of the lady I purchased it from as his first vehicle. He's very excited because he's a fisherman and turning 16, I think, next year. It's a perfect truck. You're not going to care if it gets wrecked. It's fairly cheap. It's super cheap to maintain compared to that. And it's a good runner, even with 339,000 miles on it. So I got $3,500 for that, minus subtract that off. Now, if you've been following for a long time, you know that I had bought a derelict salvage title 2003 Ford as a parts car for that Ford to keep it running. I scrapped that, got $600 for it. And I'm going to throw this one in. This is kind of cheating, but I'm going to throw it in anyway. That Ford's basically due for tires. So at some point in the next few months, I was going to have to drop almost $1,100 on tires on that Ford. And now I don't have to. So we're going to call that a cost avoidance. I kind of put that in the same category as what I'm going to get back from that $500 paperweight that I bought. So net, after selling the Ford, selling the junk truck, and not having to buy tires, I'm $4,322 or $28 with the $6 for the headlights into this car right now. I'm very happy with that. So let's look at the mileage. I said I've been averaging about 47 all around, and the Ford all around got about 15 and a half. I put 25,000 miles a year on these vehicles. That's my daily driver. I drive 100 miles a day back and forth to work. Minimum, 23 to 25,000 miles a year. I'm estimating a fuel cost of $3.70 a gallon, which is what we have right now. So with the Honda, that's 532 gallons in a year for 25,000 miles. With the Ford, it's 1,613 gallons. Right at about triple, or a little more than triple. So the Honda is $1,968 a year in fuel. The Ford is $5,968 a year in fuel. So the savings a year is almost precisely $4,000 in gasoline. With the $4,322 or $28 I have out of pocket in this after selling the Ford and not buying those tires, it's going to pay off on fuel savings alone in 1.08 years. So in 25,000 miles, this thing will be net zero, and it's full-on fuel savings after that, in my pea brain. There are some other costs I didn't add in, which also help. 2 oil changes per year. The Ford's $200 because of the amount of oil it takes. This is $60. So, you're basically a third just on the oil changes. So you're saving at least $100 to $120 a year on oil changes, in addition to the fuel changes, just because there's less of it to change. And we will see how it goes, but that's my price breakdown. Again, do I recommend somebody do this? Not even close. I'm glad I did. It was a hell of a learning experience. I would say you don't necessarily need the ridiculous $1,100 scan tool I bought, although it was kind of nice to program my own keys after I had them cut. That was handy. But if you are not willing to spend big chunks of change for the ability to be, South Park smug and say you have a hybrid, stick with the regular naturally aspirated gasoline Civics. They're a lot simpler. Much simpler to diagnose. Much simpler to find some mechanic who's going to be able to diagnose them, let alone have some concept. Like I said, I just figured out today that the air conditioner compressor has both a belt and an electric motor. I'm going to look that up. That has to be a $2,000 air conditioning compressor if it ever dies. And I will fix it, because you got to have air. But the regular one's probably $400. It's that level of silliness with these cars. Taillights, regular Civics, 40 bucks. There's a million of them on eBay. These, they made like 12 of them. They're $360, and you can about only get them from the Honda dealer. So I've got one that's not quite right, and that I'll fix that. I'm going to fix it eventually, whether I take it apart and try to find an LED that'll work. We'll see. But that's kind of where we're at. I would not, under any circumstances, recommend somebody buy a Honda Civic Hybrid unless you're doing the work yourself, or have someone who will do the work for you extremely cheaply, because the parts are vicious. This is kind of the opposite, or it's honestly, it's more expensive than the 86 Mercedes that I restored. That was before I started posting on YouTube. That thing, I was mortified when everything I had to buy for it was $300. Every part was 300 bucks. Every sensor was like $70. Man, I long for those days when you're looking at what this thing costs when it comes to the hybrid drive and some of the wacky things they do to do what they do to get 50 miles to gallon out of it. So, you know, it is what you want. But no, I would never recommend this to anybody who cannot get a warranty on it. Now, you buy one that's under 150,000 miles with a clear title, knock yourself out, because you'll be able to get that thing repaired for 15 years from the manufacture date up to 150,000 miles. You get that piece replaced. So that's a great deal. That's why right now I'm looking for lower mileage ones at the auctions that have clean titles. I don't care what condition they're in, but if they got a clean title and low mileage, if that goes bad, I can get it fixed cheap, free. And that's a huge, huge difference than having one out of warranty. It's out of warranty, get ready to spend when that thing dies. And you got to be willing to believe that you're going to get a lot of miles out of a car with nearly 250,000 miles on it. Now, I'm saying that as the owner of a 1997 Ford with 340,000 miles on it, which I believe will go another 100. So, we're going to see where we end up with this one. But that's the end of the series. Am I happy with it? Absolutely. It's doing everything I wanted. I underestimated what it was going to cost by probably a factor of 2. I was way under what I thought this was going to cost, because I did not realize the IMA module existed. I thought, hybrid? Just change a battery. Yeah, that's the cheap part. Now I know. Would I do it again? Absolutely. I'm looking for more of them. I want to be the, now that I understand damn near everything in it and have a good idea of the pricing, I can make much more intelligent choices when it comes to what's on the auction lot. So I'm not afraid of these things. But if you don't do your own work, you should be. As great a car as it drives, as good a car as I think it's going to be, you don't want anything to do with this thing unless you can do your own work. Period. And you have to know the magnitude of the expense that you're going into if that electrical system fails. So, I guess going forward, the Ford's going away. We're going to be delivering that back to Dallas in a couple of weeks. So that won't be on the channel any longer. But I am going to tell the new owner that if he ever has a problem with it, give me a call. I'm going to go up there. We're going to fix it. It's going to be back. But this is what we're going to be doing now. We're going to be working on the Honda, whatever I do next. And I've got a new hunk of equipment for it already that's sitting in my kitchen that I may do tomorrow or Saturday this week, and we'll get that up there. Because if there's one thing that's disappointing about this, the stereo is crap. Garbage. For all of the electronics in this thing, the stereo is an absolute joke. And I get it. Big amps equals less fuel economy, but I need some bass. So that may be what we're doing next. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the series. If you did, Please give me a like. Please subscribe. We're going to be doing more of this. I've still got the 37 Ford. I'm waiting for Madman to get some space in his shop to get the chassis finished. I have gotten into Rocky Mountain Race Week 2.0 this year in September. I hope to have the car finished by then. We're going to go compete in that. Going to post every day, hopefully, with that. And we got a lot of good stuff coming up. So, anyway, from me to you, hope you're having a good day, and take care.